Let's bring in our guest with us to discuss this hour, trial attorney Michael Jaafar. Michael, it was something else. I was half expecting the defendant to say something about his thoughts once again in mitigation, but he didn't, although his defense attorney basically made, he said, Judge, you heard the evidence in the trial and the evidence that was actually proffered outside the presence of the jury as well regarding some of the charges against Christina Parcell. Your response to the sentencing?
I think we just saw a travesty of justice. In my opinion, I think that this case is going to come back from the appeals court on a boomerang. I think the judge went way too far. I think he should have admitted the evidence of the pedophilia when the guardian ad litem opened the door, and then I thought for sure if Zachary Hughes takes a stand, for sure the judge is going to let it in. He didn't let it in. He berated him for bringing it up. In my opinion, it's like watching the Super Bowl and the game is tied, and then there's an amazing play, and then the referee just creates a foul right on just wants to control the game. I think that this was a miscarriage of justice. I think, frankly, the decision by the judge was dumb. I think this whole thing, what's a trial, a criminal trial at its core, Michael? It's a search for truth. Do we really feel like the jury got to see the truth? Do we how can you even imagine and contort your mind to think that his state of mind, I mean, he was charged with malice aforethought, premeditated murder. His state of mind and why he thought he was, I'm not saying it's justified. Let the jury hear the case. But that absolutely goes to the state of mind of the person who committed the murder. That's what we want to do. It's not like there's one degree of murder and one charge. There's several layers.
Well, Mike,
there's several charges.
The judge, in making his ruling, he said he didn't think it had anything to do or go to whether he killed this person or not, that it had something that was outside of the realm of what this jury said. Here, stand by for a second, because my understanding is we actually heard from the defense attorney in this case, the man representing Zachary Hughes, so let's take a listen to what he had to say after the sentencing.
Very brief, and that is the jury reached a verdict. The judge sentenced Mr. Hughes, and we're going to appeal. And that's our comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so you heard it there. The defense attorney plans to appeal. No surprise there, Michael Jaafar. I think he's probably speaking to exactly what you were talking about, that one of the main issues, or the main issue in this case, is what defense they were allowed to present. And again, going into the state of mind of the defendant. But again, it really begs the question, do we want a system that's going to reward someone for committing a crime for a prospective crime, something that they think might happen or is ongoing but not going to happen in that moment? That's really the question here.
No, we don't want that, but there's a system for that, and the system is let the jury decide. Number one, it's not like if the jury would have heard it that they would have even agreed with them, because there's a way of reporting a crime of pedophilia. It's not to murder somebody. It's definitely not to murder somebody and put this macabre murder scene. It's to call the police and say, hey, I'm going to wear a wire. I want to cooperate. Here's what I've become privy to. Let me help you out. That's the way to do it. So what he did is not justified. But I don't believe that the system would turn into a system where, somebody could get off because some sort of inflammatory information or evidence was given to the jury. But it's so relevant. It's not only relevant, it is the case. And so I disagree with the judge's ruling that this is not relevant, because at the end of the day, there's not one degree of murder. There's multiple degrees and multiple layers, and there's things that qualify murder. Why did you commit it? The state of mind matters. Even when you look at first-degree murder and second-degree murder, your state of mind matters. And so the judge created a contortion of fact, of truth, that I think was just too artificial. I think he made a gross mistake. I do think it's going to come back on appeal. For that
I agree,
reason.
State of mind matters, but his state of mind was to kill that woman. Why he did it, I don't think was relevant. That's just me. Michael, stand by. We're going to squeeze in a break. We'll bring back in our guest. Joining us to discuss is trial attorney Michael Jaafar. Michael, I want to talk about a couple of things. Number one, let's just talk about what the solicitor was talking about there. It was kind of a shock to all of us when we saw the cross-examination. Was only one question. And I think he wanted to highlight, as he mentioned, the brutality of the crime and that he knew what he was doing there and some of the actions that he took, but kept it very short because he didn't want to have a conversation with this defendant who really showed that he couldn't follow the rules of the court. What do you make of it?
It makes total sense. It makes total sense because he knew that if he perpetuated and he kept asking him questions, Zachary Hughes would keep polluting the jury with what the judge had already decided cannot be admitted, and basically the judge did the cross-examination for him, Michael. I vehemently disagree with the judge's decision. He did it by basically imputing a state of mind to Zachary Hughes by not allowing him to tell the jury his state of mind. And so why would the prosecutor continue with this cross-examination? The witness / defendant had already basically admitted to the jury that he did the murder, and he was not allowed to tell them anything about why he did it. And so at the end of the day, he already admitted to the crime. I think the solicitor did the right job. I think 1 question, 2 questions, I think that was enough. The job was already done. You know, he didn't need to go on. And if he did go on, I do agree with him that Zachary Hughes, he clearly was up there on a virtue trip to tell the jury, this is why I did it. He had already been basically held in contempt of court, so why continue with the cross-examination? So I do agree with him on that, even though I completely disagree with everything else he said in the interview with Kelly. On that, I fully agree with him. I think that was a right strategic decision by him.
All right, fair enough. What I want to do now is I want to take a look back. All right, so Michael Jaafar, this solicitor, talked about getting justice for the family, but it's not quite done yet because John Mello is still out there. He's facing charges on solicitation. He was no bonded today, so the judge didn't even offer him bond. He is in jail awaiting his trial on those solicitation charges. I wonder if now we may see conspiracy to commit murder charges, because I firmly believe, Michael, that had this defendant not met John Mello and John Mello not manipulated him, and I think he absolutely manipulated him into this act, this never would have happened.
I fully agree. Yeah, I think that I've been puzzled as to why we haven't seen conspiracy to commit murder charges against John Mello since the beginning of this. And then in the middle of the trial, when Zachary Hughes, his team said, we want to bring in the defense of others, claimed, then I said, you know what, the whole thing is starting to make sense. And then today in the testimony, and then they arrested him based on what Zachary Hughes said. I think it's just, I think they arrested him on the low-hanging fruit and they didn't give him bond. And I think you're going to see other charges get added on. This is a Greek tragedy, obviously. I mean, there's no way out of it. This young girl, you know, her mother's dead. Her father's going to be indicted for the murder of her mother. He's going to be, we presume it's going to happen. But I think we're going to see those charges come down the pipeline soon. And hey, you've now got Zachary Hughes ready to testify because he clearly doesn't like John Mello. And so you can leverage him for some evidence against John Mello. Why not? Because the WhatsApp messages are gibberish now. So Zachary Hughes becomes your prime witness against John Mello. Yeah,
no question about it. All right, in the final 30 seconds, Michael Jaafar, final thoughts on this case.
I think it's going to come back on appeal. I think there are different levels, different layers to murder. For you to tell when the defendant takes the stand and wants to tell you his state of mind, and you say your state of mind doesn't matter, then the judge is imputing a state of mind. We're just looking then at just the actus reus. You committed murder. That's it. So there's no other. I just think it was a mistake. I think it's come back on appeal.
All right, it certainly will be going to appeal, and we will be watching and reporting on anything that happens in this case, not only in this one, but also in the case involving John Mello. Thank you so much, Michael Jaafar, for joining us this evening. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. You have a great evening.